I'm going to begin with the statement that stress cannot possibly cause infertility, cannot be the cause of infertility. Just today at the Portland Hotel, which is, as Lauren said, a facility for drug-addicted, mentally ill people often with HIV, hepatitis C, had to call an ambulance because a young woman there, 31-year-old, 36 weeks pregnant, lost her water and was rushed to hospital, delivered her baby. Now, if stress could be the cause of infertility, this woman would never be pregnant. And she's not the first one in that very difficult place to get pregnant. On the other hand, most women in the downtown east side hotels where I work don't even menstruate. Clearly stress-related. The menstruations have stopped years ago at the age of 27, 25, 30, and so on. So it's simplistic to say that anything is the cause of anything else directly, most of the time. You still have to consider that things have multiple causes. So when I talk about stress tonight, I'm not implying that stress is the cause of infertility. However, I'm implying very strongly that it can play a significant role and that there's every theoretical and practical reason to suppose that not only would it play a significant role, but that it must play a significant role. In Toronto, some years ago, there was a study where they asked women who had survived breast cancer what they had felt or believed was the cause of their cancer and what then also allowed them to survive the cancer or to surmount it. And more women put down stress than any other factor. The researchers, being medical scientists, of course, knew better. And they said, this just shows how the public blames stress for everything. Because it is well known, they said, that genetic factors are a major influence in breast cancer. Hormones are a major influence in breast cancer. And diet can also play a role. But there's no evidence for stress. And yet, from a strict scientific point of view, the women were right and the researchers were wrong. Here's the deal, just to tell you. With breast cancer, only about 100, out of 100 women with breast cancer, only 7 carry the breast cancer genes. But 93 don't. Number one. Number two, diet has sort of a soft role to play. Certainly it could play into it. And yes, hormones have a powerful role to play in breast cancer because many receptors on cancer cells actually are capable of receiving and being activated by hormones of all kinds, including estrogen. And one way to deal with breast cancer or prevent it from recurring is to give women estrogen blocking tamoxifen so that their receptors will not be activated. The malignant receptors will not be activated by the hormones. Where the researchers, however, share the common blindness of medical practice is they don't recognize that hormones themselves are under significant mind-body, emotional, psychological influences. In fact, you can't separate the two at all. In one study, for example, of monkeys in captivity, female monkeys, they looked at groups of monkeys in terms of dominance. Who's dominant in the group, and who's subordinate, who gets pushed around. In each group, the dominant female monkeys had low cortisol levels. Now, cortisol is the body's quintessential stress hormone. It's activated by the adrenal gland on top of the kidney in response to emotional influences from the brain. So these dominant monkeys had low cortisol levels, which means to say they were not stressed. They had normal female hormone levels, FSH and luteinizing hormone, and they had regular ovulations and regular periods. The subordinate monkeys in each group had high cortisol levels, abnormal female hormone levels, and ineffective and irregular ovulatory cycles. Now you might say, so what? That could just be genetic. Except, then they switched the groups around. They arranged the groups so that previously dominant monkeys now became subordinate because they were put with stronger monkeys. And previously subordinate monkeys became dominant because they were put with weaker monkeys. And within 1 month, the hormonal patterns had reversed. The previously dominant monkeys, now subordinate, had high cortisol levels and abnormal female hormone levels and ovulation patterns. The previously subordinate monkeys, now dominant, had low cortisol levels and normal female hormone levels and normal ovulation patterns. So to say that stress has nothing to do with hormones and therefore with cancer is just to actually make a division between mind and body that simply can't be supported by any scientific evidence whatsoever. Even in, not just even, also in men it's the same thing. In the book I give this example of the 1992 or 1994 World Soccer Championship in which Brazil played Italy. Now, you know those countries, soccer is an important sport. And they measured the level of testosterone of the fans, of the rooters at the game. Comparing the two groups, Brazilians and Italians, they had similar testosterone levels before the game. After the game, which the Brazilians won 4-2, the Brazilian level of testosterone went way up and the Italian went way down. Which is to say that the simple fact of being stressed by a losing soccer game actually lowered testosterone levels. Now, imagine then these factors, and notice, by the way, that in both of these studies, the issue is dominance, isn't it? I mean, there's a vicarious dominance and victory when your team wins a soccer game. Depending how hot you feel about it. Noam Chomsky, I heard him say once that in high school he was rooting for his high school football team, and he said to himself, why am I rooting for these guys? I don't even know any of them. But of course, for these Italian and Brazilian fans, it's very personal. So if acute, fairly trivial events like that can change your hormonal patterns, what about the effects of chronic stress? What about the effects of chronic conditions that may have you losing control or being dominated or in some other way being stressed? So that's the first point. The second point is that in the studies that look at stress and infertility,